Okay guys, so listen up. On this worksheet, I've been explaining how to do this using point slope form. Now the first thing you have to do is read the instructions carefully on this section. So it says, write an equation in slope-intercept form, that's really y equals mx plus b, of the line that passes through the given point. So they give you a point that your line passes through, and it's parallel to the given line. So they give you a point and they give you another line, and your line is parallel to this line. And what does parallel mean? It means same slope. So indirectly they're giving you the slope. Okay. So for example, let's take a look at this one. They give us a point and they give us a line that's parallel to ours, and they want us to write it in slope-intercept form. Now you need two things to write an equation in slope-intercept form. You need the m and you also need the b. If you have the m and you have the b, then you're able to write it in slope-intercept form, right? Which is, let me just write it down, y equals mx plus b. So do they give you the m? Yes or no? Yes. Indirectly, they do. Indirectly, they do. Why do I say that? Because they don't say your slope is this, but they tell you your line is going to be parallel to this line. Now, parallel means it has the same slope. So just by knowing the definition of parallel, you could look at this line and say my m value is going to be exactly the same as that m value. So my m value is going to be negative 3/4. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. And then the b value, well, I need to find the b value. Now, what do we have here? We have the slope, because we knew the definition of parallel. It's the same slope as the line that they gave us. And technically, I don't need this line anymore. I could put an x through it if I wanted to. I don't need to look at it anymore. Because right now, all I'm going to focus in on is the slope that I already know and this point right here, which is an xy value. So what do I have here? I have a slope and I have a point. Now, on the other video, I explained this exact question using point slope form, right? So you could use point slope form, which is, so on the other video, I explained using this form, point slope form. I took the slope and I put it right here, negative 3/4. I took the x value of 4 and put it over here. I took the y value of negative 6 and put it right here. And then I manipulated this to make it look like y equals mx plus b by getting y by itself and distributing the m to get rid of the parentheses. Now, I'm not going to do that on this video. If you want to go that route, check out the other videos that I've already posted. Right here, I'm going to just stick with only slope-intercept form. Okay, slope-intercept form. So what do I have so far? I have a slope, I need an intercept, and I do have an x and a y value. So what I'm going to do is rewrite my y equals mx plus b equation, y equals mx plus b, but instead of my y value, I'm going to plug in my y value of negative 6. Instead of my m value, I'm going to plug in the slope that I know that my line has to be, which is negative 3/4. And instead of my x value, I'm going to plug in the x value of the coordinate, which is 4. And of course, we still have the plus b out here that we need to solve for, because if we find that b value, then we're able to write it in slope-intercept form because I'll have my slope and my y-intercept. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, so the 4's obviously cancel out. So what do we have left? We have this new equation, negative 6 equals negative 3 plus b. So I need to get rid of that negative 3. So I'm going to go plus 3, and my answer is negative 3 equals b. And now that I know my b value, which is negative 3, and I already knew my m value because it was given to us because the equation they gave us was parallel to it, now I could write my answer in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So my equation is going to be y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3. Okay, so let me actually go over here to the side. Let me write my answer. It's going to be y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3. And ladies and gentlemen, that's your slope-intercept form equation of number 3. Now, if you don't like that route, you could have also gone with the point slope form. You could have taken your slope of negative 3/4, put it right here in your slope position, taking the x, put it on the x, the y, put it on the y, because after all, you have a point, you have a slope, you could plug it into point slope form, and then you could manipulate it, okay? So I'm giving you many different ways of answering these questions. So there's many roads to the same place. All you have to do is pick a road that you're more comfortable with, okay? Would you guys like me to work this same exact question, but instead of solving for b, I use the point slope form? Yeah, just so you could see it? Okay, now I already explained it on a previous video. I'm going to explain it again right here on this video. So we already know that the answer to this number 3 is y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3. I want to get this same exact answer, but I want to get this answer by using point slope form. So once again, you start by understanding that this equation is parallel, so indirectly they give you your slope. Okay, so you don't have to look at this line anymore. You just know your slope, you know a point on your line. So what do we really have right here? We have a point and we have a slope. So I'm going to go with point slope form this time, okay? Now when you use point slope form, it's a great idea to rewrite point slope form but with blank spots. What am I talking about? I'm talking about y minus blank spot equals m, but put a blank spot there, parenthesis x minus blank spot. And then plug in your values. Your y value from the coordinate from the point that they give you is negative 6. Your m value that you found out because it was parallel to the equation given to you is negative 3/4. And the x value of the point they gave you is 4. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, so now we could focus in on this point slope form equation and just work on it and change it to get it to be y equals mx plus b. Or you can multiply everything by 4. Now, I see, if I look at this thing, if I distribute negative 3/4 times x, it's negative 3/4 x, and then negative 3/4 times a negative 4, that's going to be a positive and the 4's cancel. It ends up being nice and beautiful. So you might as well distribute it here because it works out so good. So when you distribute the negative 3/4 times x, you get negative 3/4 x. When you distribute negative 3/4 times negative 4, you're going to get a positive and the 4's cancel, right? So you end up with a positive 3 right there. And you still have the equal sign. You still have y plus 6 because the minus minus changed to plus plus. So remember, we're trying to write this in slope-intercept form. That's what the instructions say. So I need to get rid of that plus 6 by doing the opposite, minus 6. So you go minus 6 here, minus 6 over here. Your final slope-intercept form equations y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3. So as you could see, I did this a completely different way, but yet I got the same exact slope-intercept form equation, y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3, y equals negative 3/4 x minus 3. One way was just sticking with y equals mx plus b. How did I do that? Well, I knew that my slope was parallel my slope was the same because the lines are parallel. And then after that, I used the x and the y, and I plugged in the x into the x position on y equals mx plus b. I plugged in the y into the y on the y equals mx plus b. I plugged in the m into the m on y equals mx plus b, and then I solved for b. That's a process. If you don't like that process, then you could recognize, oh, I have a slope and I have a point. Let's go with point slope form, and you could go this route if you want. It all depends which path you feel more comfortable with, but there's many roads to the same place. Now, not all of these are going to be that easy. Like I mentioned on previous videos, they might give you an equation and they tell you, yeah, your equation's parallel to it, which means that they indirectly give you the slope because if they're parallel, they have the same slope. But right here, it's in standard form. You don't even know what the slope is, right? So you first need to modify this equation so you could see the m value by getting it in y equals mx plus b form. So in this one, I'd have to subtract 5x, and then rewrite. I'd have negative 4y equals negative 5x plus 1. Then I'd have to divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4. So my slope-intercept form equation of this line is going to be y equals, negative divided by negative is positive, 5/4 x, and then minus 1/4 is my b value. Now, all I've done is taken the original line that they gave us and I changed it into slope-intercept form. Why did I do that? Because they tell me that this line is parallel to the line that I want to write. Now, what does parallel mean? It means the same exact slope. So when I look at the original standard form, I don't know what the slope is, but now that I modified it, I know what my slope is. What's the slope on that equation? 5/4. That's the slope, 5/4. So that means that my slope, because my line is parallel to this one, my slope is also 5/4. Right? So the only reason I took this standard form and changed it to slope-intercept is so I could see the slope, so I could get my slope out of there, because I know that my line is parallel to this one. So indirectly, they're telling me that my slope is the same as this one, which is 5/4. Are you with me? Okay, so once you have your slope and you have a point, x1, y1, then you could go for point slope form, or then you could go for slope-intercept form, either way. Okay? So I don't need to look at this guy anymore. I already got what I needed out of it. I already got my slope out of it. And now it's just a question, do you want to go with point slope form, or do you want to plug in everything into y equals mx plus b so we could solve for b, so we could write it in y equals mx plus b form? It's totally up to you guys.
Point slope form.
Point slope form. So if you go point slope form, it'll be this. Point slope form is right there. I recommend you put it with blank spots and just plug in your values. Your y1 value is 2, right? Put that right in there. That's 2. Your x1 value is -8, so put that right in there. That's -8. And then your m value is 5/4, so you're going to put that 5/4 right in place of the m. And that's your point slope form equation, but you don't want it in point slope form. They want it in slope-intercept form. So you have to modify it by changing to plus, and then you'd have to either distribute the 5/4 or get rid of the fraction 5/4. If I do distribute 5/4, 5/4 times x, that's pretty easy. That becomes 5/4 x. But when I go 5/4 times 8, it's good to put the 8 over a 1. That way you get 5 times 8, 40, and 1 times 4, 4, and you'll get 40 over 4, which is what? 10. That's right, it's 10. Okay, so you really have the equal sign right there and y minus 2. The final step would be to get rid of that minus 2 by going plus 2 here, plus 2 over there. Your final slope-intercept form equations, y equals 5/4 x plus 12. That's your final answer for number 9. Now, you didn't have to use point slope form. Once you got to this point of identifying your slope and the point, you could have plugged it all into y equals mx plus b if you wanted to do it this other way, right? So your y value, you could plug in your y value being 2 from the point that you knew your line passes through, equals m, which you know is 5/4, times x, which in this case is -8 from the point. And then the plus b you don't know, so that's what we're going to solve for if you're trying to do it this other way. So I'm showing you both methods here. You don't have to do both, you just have to pick one. So when you multiply 5/4 times -8, that will become -2 times 5, so you'll get a -10 right here, plus b with the equals 2 on the left. And then when you solve for b, you're going to go plus 10, you're going to have 12 equals b. So now that you know the slope, because you knew that from the beginning, and now that you know your b value 12, you're going to be able to write your equation in y equals mx plus b form. Y equals 5/4 x plus 12. But we already knew that because we used point slope form. So it's totally up to you which method you feel better using. Okay? Now keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, if the instructions say, like on the second half of the homework, if it says you have perpendicular slopes, then your slope would not be 5/4, it would be -4/5.